AskReddit by Cold Cat Daddy. What do you think of the idea of adopting elderly people whose children have died as parents or grandparents, much the same way we adopt children whose parents have died as our own? This reminds me of the programs where kindergartens take the children into aged care facilities and the children pick a buddy, and then write letters, draw pictures and visit their buddy. Reminds me of when I was on the Adopt Awards scheme in school. Walking in my first time, one of my mates turns and goes, "Hope I don't get a deaf one again." Greets the first old guy inside, who immediately cups his ear and asks, "What?" My town actually has an adopt a grandparent program at some of the nursing homes. They made up profiles with their interests and what they like to talk about, so you could choose a grandparent you'd get along with well. My church did this when I was a kid, and I loved my adopted grandma. She was awesome. She was going to teach me how to play dominoes, but never got to it. We went to visit her one day, and found out she had passed. To this day, I've just not learned to play dominoes. Because she was going to teach me, and I don't want to learn from someone else. I know it's weird. Edit. Holy wow. I came back to an intimidating number of notifications. Thank you all for the awards and the stories. I know I'm a little late to the party, but if anyone's reading this now, if you happen to find an adopt a grandparent program, do it, later when we're not all walking petri dishes. Visiting her was one of my favorite childhood memories, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. A similar concept is having orphanages for children with elderly living with them, those who don't have a family or have been put up in some kind of assisted living. The kids grow up with grandparents who tell them stories and teach them how to be better people. The elderly get genuine love and affection. There are some centers like this in India, and overall the benefits are pretty good. The elderly are more healthy and are happier. The young ones are better behaved and do well in school. This is an awesome idea and happy to hear it's being put in action. It's not the same, but I had adopted grandparents growing up. Basically, when my mom's father died young, her best friend's father stepped in and volunteered to be her surrogate dad. He was my grandpa, his wife was my granny, his daughter, my mom's best friend, is my aunt, and her kids are my cousins. As far as I'm concerned, they're all family. My sister is a stepmother to 2 boys, and my stepnephews refer to my mum and dad as their spare grandpa and grandma. You mean I can get a mom grandma who will love me and bake me shit, and I can entertain and show them my crazy life? Where can I sign up? I'll bake you stuff, and I'm only in my 30s. I just love sharing baked goods and hearing crazy stories. I think it's lovely. Majority of my parents' friends are child free, and I've done something similar. I visit a lot of them and send them packages. It's always nice to have more great people in your life. Heard any cool old person stories? My Japanese grandfather was adopted by a childless elderly couple at the age of 27. This was a way to continue their family line and pass down the family business. I visited his mother, but not his birth age 27 mother, as a child. He took care of his parents in their old age, and the business is now 120 years old. Apparently this was a fairly common practice. My mom did not understand why I thought this was unusual at all. I should also mention that he changed his name and lived as their son until he died. That's incredible. I've heard of this before actually. May I ask, what happened to his real parents? I did this as a young girl, 8. My last nana died and I was upset that I didn't have an Abba. One day while visiting family friend, my mum and dad said I should ask her if she could be my nana. She said yes, even though she had her own grandchildren. We did lots together when I was a child. Cooking, art, gardening, act. I think she even taught me a little piano. Then I became a stupid teenager and went through a stupid emo stage and didn't see her as often. She sadly passed away when I was 16. At her funeral I found out she often talked about me to her own children and actually viewed me as a grandchild. She was amazing and I am very grateful for her. She was always super nice and kind. I miss her dearly. Teenagers, please make time for your grandparents. My grandmother passed away during my stupid teenage early 20s aloof phase as well. I regret every day not being there for her, and that's a weight I'll have to bear for the rest of my life. Nothing wrong with helping or contributing to their well-being, but I doubt anyone would take on the legal responsibilities, such as medical costs, housing costs, etc. They also shouldn't take on those legal responsibilities. Elderly people are at high risk of financial abuse and elder abuse. I think programs where you spend time with older people who are lonely are a great idea, but random people shouldn't volunteer to take on legal responsibilities of vulnerable people. That's what state trustees and guardianship is for. In Australia, could be different in other countries. All my grandparents are dead, so I'll adopt 2 sets of grandmas and grandpas. They don't have to be married. You can just argue a whole lot, offer me whiskey and bake me pies and perhaps give me $5 on my birthday. PM for a view. Edit, and don't get mad at me for putting foil pinwheels in your microwave because I like watching the pretty sparks. I think I wanna be your grandma. We had elderly neighbors whose son didn't really care for, so my mother did. We called them grandma and grandpa, and I hope we made their last years a bit better. My dad had a super sweet older customer who often stopped by his mechanic shop just to chat. My brother and I were extremely young and basically said she was our adopted grandma. She had no children of her own and we didn't know our bio grandparents, so it worked out amazing. She died of cancer and watching her decline in health was so hard. It would suck for the people with Alzheimer's. Then again, they might not remember they weren't adopted. Before anyone gets mad, my grandpa went out that way and it wasn't pretty. For those dealing with this, you have my sympathies. I have friends whose kids don't really talk to them. I'm not sure why, because they're really lovely, amazing people. One year, I found out the guy's kids wouldn't even take his call on Father's Day, so I told him he's now a part of our family and they're both now extra grandparents. Since my kids' own grandparents were distant, it worked out really well. I love our extra family members. Edit, my friends aren't as dark as you'll think. One may not have been the greatest mom. She had her son at 16 and tried hard, but she was still a kid herself. They still talk. Her husband was in a pretty acrimonious divorce as his ex turned the kids against him. JFC. My mother will never get a visit from me. I've been told for years she's an awesome person and is super nice. My police report from grade 7 says otherwise. Just because they're nice to you, doesn't mean they are nice to their kids. And I know this isn't every old lonely person. Sometimes the kids are just garbage. But not always. I have an adopted grandma. Her word, she plays bingo at the club where I used to work and de-iced I was family and started calling herself my adopted grandmother, and I love her to pieces. Humans must never be dismantled. I'm a 30-year-old female who would love a new set of parents. One grandson included. Edit, word missing. In some cases it is this. I knew a couple who had a child who was born very unhealthy. The boy didn't live past 5 years. And any time after that they had stillbirths. They adopted a little boy with autism and was about 11, and it's like he adopted them as his parents just as much as they adopted him as their kid. And his grandparents still spoil him. He loves his grandparents back. I think it's a very nice idea. Thanks, mommy. I actually adopted a dad and it was the best thing for both of us. He is actually coming to bring me to the doctors today and to hang out. It is great for thighs who are in need of a supportive family. Love makes a family, not blood. Oh, that's cool. Can I ask about your dynamic? What are your ages, and how did you meet? My next door neighbor is 90. Very active for 90. Would have never guessed she was 90. She lives alone. We actually bought our house from her niece and nephew, as they were moving closer to their grandchildren. She never had children. My children, 5 and 2, call her granny and she loves it. Tells us all the time how much we have blessed her by being her neighbor and she got so much joy playing with our children. My girls love her so much. I think it's a great idea. There's a Swedish movie about a kid who adopts a grandfather. A while ago there was a news story in my country, where they had foster teens, older ones, living with elderly people. Part of it was that they would help with chores and stuff, and the elderly people would have someone to spend time with. Everyone seemed really happy, the old folks and the teens. The teens enjoyed feeling needed and having responsibility but not having such high expectations. The old people were just really kind and loving. That honestly seems like a great idea. You can do that already. Check on your neighbor. I adopted my next door neighbor. Her entire family lived far away and we loved her, helped her and made it so she could stay in her home until she died at 92. I miss her a lot. She was chill and fun. Deleted. Y'all can call me daddy anytime. Hi dad, I'm hungry. I think this would make our society much better than it is. I never thought about that before. It would be wonderful as someone who has never had a family before or are neglected or dishonored due to their gender choice or sexuality, might finally get someone to love them and can take care of each other. However, the elderly might face several challenges similar to the difficulties that orphans face. While good intentioned, I fear any program of this nature would be swamped with scam artists trying to con the elderly off their savings. I'd rather not invite a lifetime's worth of emotional baggage into my home, unless this person was exceedingly pleasant. Mostly I think it would just feel weird for everyone involved. I can feel you, in a different way. I dropped 99% of my family for toxic abuse. I've never felt safe, loved, valued, encouraged by my parents or my grandparents, except a few times on my paternal grandside. So I am always a little weirded out by loving families, and struggle to imagine I could ever have one. I wouldn't know how. I have no desire to risk getting more abuse from an old person when I've finally been able to be free and enjoy my life and or make their own life potentially miserable with my own baggage. My family moved house when I was 8. There was a kind older lady at the new church who had arthritis and a sweet old King Charles Spaniel that she struggled to take out. She needed help walking him, so I would go round and help with shopping and dog walks. I always said she was my adopted grandma. She taught me how to tend pinball. She would take me and the dog out to the countryside for long walks. As a city kid it was amazing. She never had children of her own, so I think in a way I was like her child or grandchild. She passed away this morning and I hadn't seen her in a few years. Tell your loved ones you love them. Life is short, but I have amazing memories. That's a touching story and I am truly sorry for your loss. Where I live, there is a rent-ma service. Essentially, parents who can't stay home with their sick children or something like that and don't have anyone to watch them, can rent a grandma. It's all elderly women who don't have much to do anymore and like playing with children. Also, a family always gets the same 1 or 2 grandmas so the kids can get used to them. Wait, you mean to tell me I have a perfectly good grandma at home that I could be renting out? WTF dude, it's time to put that old girl to work. I have a couple of extra moms. Seems like a condescending version of just being kind and social with elders. Why not just make a friend instead?